Good afternoon. It is 2 o'clock, so we will start the meeting. Welcome to this meeting of the Joint Overview Committee. Just a couple of reminders before we start. When you start speaking for the first time, please could you introduce yourselves so people online know who you are. And the first thing we need to do is appoint a chair for the meeting. So are there any nominations?
Hi, Councillor Andy Canning, Dorchester West. I'd like to nominate Councillor Ezard for the position of chair for this meeting.
And Councillor Taylor is seconding.
Which second, thank you.
And in the absence of no other nominations, Councillor Ezard is appointed chair.
Thank you, and welcome everyone. Good to see you all after Christmas, and Happy New Year, and I hope it's a healthy and good New Year this year. We've got lots to do and lots to discuss today. So my Vice Chair will be Andy Canning here, sitting by me, and if anyone actually is online that wants to speak, make sure you make yourself known so that we can see you, and I'm hoping with my colleagues we'll be able to pick you up easily on that one. And as George said, make sure you say your name and your ward. Thank you. So we're going on now. Any apologies, please, George? Oh.
Yes, we have apologies from Councillors Kathy Lugg, Richard Crabb, Mike Parks and Julie Robinson.
Is there anyone else that we know of that isn't present that has sent their apologies? Right, it's going off. Declaration of interest. As any member has any declaration of interest they wish to make, can they make it known now? Because I think we've only got really one item on the agenda today. Anyone? Nope. Thank you. Public participation. We have got one question submitted by Becky Brookman on my right here on behalf of Unison Dorset branch. And it will be responded by the Cabinet Member for Transformation, Councillor Ben Wilson. So if you'd like to, Becky.
Thank you. So it's Becky Brookman, Branch Secretary of Dorset Unison Branch. So Unison is concerned that significant changes outlined in our future council transformation plan will lead to massive workforce reductions with potentially hundreds of job losses. Unison has been informed of the proposals, but there has been no meaningful consultation or discussions. There has also been a lack of transparency and consultation with Dorset Council employees, which does not fit with Dorset Council's values. We note in the report that it is proposed that most of the savings will come from vacancy freezes and staff cuts, yet no evidence has been provided to show exactly how much will be saved through vacancy freezes and if they will impact statutory services. There is also no evidence provided to show the correlation between the cuts proposed and automation. We do not know of any other local authority that has made such significant changes using AI and automation. There is no information to demonstrate how the savings will be made. We also have concerns about the tight timescales proposed, especially given the lack of resources within the trade unions and the Human Resources Service. We note that there is to be a saving of between 7.6 million and 23.5 million from council employees. That's against a baseline of 150.6 million. Yet there is only a 1.1 million to 5.7 million reduction proposed in commission spend against a baseline of 182.3 million. We believe that commission services should be looked at in more detail. We are concerned that an equality impact assessment has not yet been produced and the committee is being asked to make decisions based on very limited information. 29% of Dorset's population is over the age of 65, compared to 19% in England and Wales. We also know that nearly a third of residents are digitally excluded. automation may not be beneficial to those residents. The Dorset Digital Vision Equality Impact Assessment states that Dorset Council will design end-to-end services based on understanding people's needs and involving them throughout, yet no information has been provided on the impact the proposed automation may have on certain communities, which would put into doubt the statement that this will have a major positive impact on the community. There has also been no equality impact assessment on the impact these proposals will have on Dorset Council employees. The changes are likely to impact low-paid female staff, while the leadership of the council keeps growing, including, most recently, an increase of corporate directors from 3 to 5 in place. So the question is, given that there is no detail on what impacts this proposal will have once delivered, how can the committee be assured that it can meet the targets that have been set here? Thank you.
Thank you, Becky. There's a response from Councillor Ben Wilson. Please, is that okay?
Yeah. Ben Wilson, ward member for South East Purbeck. Thank you very much for the question. I think it's that my response is about context of what we're looking at today. The transformation plan that's been submitted to the Joint Overview Committee is not intended to contain the detail of the Our Future Council business case. That detail and that business case will be brought forward later this month. It will go to Cabinet and it will go to full council on the 11th of February. The committee can be assured, and Unison should be assured, that the detail will be included in that future submission. Furthermore, regular engagement has been taking place with employees and with Unison, and will continue critically to take place as we continue through this process. To add a bit more colour to that, so the transformation plan outlines the council's transformation priorities and delivery approach for the next 4 years. It is a framework, not a detailed business case, and therefore does not contain the specific data referenced in this question. Today's report reviews the transformation plan, which serves as the framework for all transformation and change business cases, which includes Our Future Council. The detailed data that Unison has referenced will be included within the Our Future Council business case, together critically with an equality impact assessment, and these will be presented and recommended to Cabinet on the 28th of January. Colleagues from the Our Future Council programme have met with trade union colleagues monthly throughout 2024, sharing data analysis, emerging key lines of inquiry, and the outline business case as they have developed. Formal engagement on any employee impacts will commence once the final business case is approved by Cabinet, and regular meetings between the Council and the trade unions will continue to be held during 2025. The timeline has always indicated that the final business case and the detail for the change proposals, including the equality impact assessment, will be proposed to Cabinet in January 2025. In relation to digital exclusion, the Residents' Survey 2023 indicated that 95% of residents have used the internet either for work at home or in other places. This aligns to the local government informed figure for Dorset of 93.3%. However, we recognise that this is not telling us that 95% of residents can use the internet easily for all functions. Currently, 25% of residents are digitally excluded, down from 30% pre-pandemic. We continue to offer digital support and training to residents, businesses and schools to help people to develop digital skills. This is supported by digital champions and an extensive community network of volunteers. The Our Future Council transformation programme aims to realign the way the council operates to make best use of technology. This will allow officers to spend less time on manual tasks and more time directly helping those residents who need us most. It also provides more opportunities for employees to access council-supported training and development for career progression. We have a programme underway to reduce the number of agency and interim workers, and consultants are used judiciously. No one works in local government to cut public services, but government policy dictates our budget, which is limited, and we have a responsibility to deliver services efficiently. Our work on transformation aims to identify how we can work more efficiently to deliver improved services for our residents at lower cost. We actively engage with employees through various channels, including webinars, newsletters, and blogs, to keep them informed about the principles and outcomes of our future council. We're also engaging closely with trade unions. Our employees are critically important to us, and our goal is to involve everyone in shaping the outcomes and innovative ideas that best serve our residents, businesses, and communities. The council has been transparent about its future vision of becoming a leaner organisation. A key aspect of this transformation is preparing our workforce for future skills and creating a sustainable, resilient council capable of continuous improvement.
For asking the question and for the comprehensive answer that Councillor Wilson's given. It will be sent to you shortly. Okay. Thank you very much. Yes, we're not taking any questions at the moment. So it will mean that anything you want to ask later, Paul, you can ask then. No, anyway, any statements or anything. Can we just continue on with the agenda? There'll be plenty of time for anything you want to say a bit later. The next item, item 5, questions from councillors. There's been no questions submitted by councillors, and no urgent items will be discussed today. And so we actually are now going to go forward with our future council transformation plan, and this will be introduced by Councillor Wilson for the introduction, and then he will tell us what the format will be. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to be very brief, and then I'm going to hand over to the officers who will provide a presentation overview of the paper that's before you. I think in the answer to the question, I've actually just stated what I'm going to restate now, but I think it's critically important. And really what I want to state is what the paper is in front of you, but critically what it isn't. Because I think we're all very keen to see Our Future Council transformation programme move forward. We're all very keen to see the detail behind it, both in terms of the financial details and the savings, but also in terms of the plan and what's going to happen. That is not what's in that transformation plan in front of you. What is in front of you is a framework, a scoping, and really a statement of ambition. I'd like to call it a strategy. I'm told I'm not allowed to. But that is the transformation plan that's before you. Critically, this includes a governance model. And why that's critical is because historically, transformation, and this is true of so many organizations, we need a way to control transformation and ensure that all transformation initiatives across the full council deliver the outcomes that are set. And what's in the paper before you as part of it is the governance model that will achieve that will bring the full scope of transformation initiatives into one body, if you like, into one transformation office so that it can be properly governed and so that we can make sure that the outcomes, whether it be cost saving, whether it be improved efficiency, whether it be improved services to our residents, will be fully achieved. And that's part of what you've seen today. So I look forward to questions and debate on this, but I'm now going to hand over to Lisa Cotton, who will provide a bit more of an overview of the paper.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Wilson, for the introductions, and good afternoon to councillors and colleagues today. I'm Lisa Cotton, Corporate Director for Transformation, Customer and Cultural Services, and I'm really pleased to present our update report and transformation plan to you all today. We really welcome your feedback to ensure that we adopt the robust plan and governance framework that Councillor Wilson referred to. It's about us being able to deliver those successful outcomes for our customers, our communities, and our organisation. Our report includes the background work completed to date on our Future Council transformation and business case, providing an overview of that ambition, principles, and the scope of transformation. And it includes, importantly, that transformation plan, which will serve as the framework for delivering all transformation and change at Dorset Council. Dorset Council has always worked with a guiding plan and framework for transformation, and this new plan reflects our priorities and requirements over the next 4 years. I will briefly highlight a couple of key sections of the report before handing to my colleague Nina for the rest of the presentation, and then I will return to the recommendations that are on the presentation before you on this slide now. So our report begins with the financial and organisational context, confirming our need to accelerate our transformational plans as a whole council. Like many local authorities, we face increasing need for services against a challenging financial forecast for the coming year and future years. This requires us to really think differently, reimagine our ways of working and redesign our future operating model to protect vital services. So to support and accelerate those future plans, we've been working across the council for several months now to identify opportunities, understand our current operations, our current ways of working, and explore how we might work differently in the future. Throughout this process, we have kept our employees, our customers, and our communities at the centre of our thinking. Our work is leading to 2 key milestones. Today's review of the transformation plan and framework, which will guide all delivery of change and transformation, and the end-of-month consideration of the full financial and strategic business case by Dorset Council Cabinet. And this is covered in Section 1. In Section 2, we describe the operating model principles and the programmes that will form the detail behind our business case and outlines our ambition. Our Future Council initiative aims to develop a new operating model to achieve significant improvements and financial benefits, leveraging bold and innovative approaches that build upon our success to date. We will focus on introducing new technology, and that is to enable us to work differently and more efficiently across everything that we do as a council. And we accept that this is a bold and complex programme, making it really critical to have that comprehensive plan and framework to guide its delivery and measure success. Sections 2 and 3 will now be described in more detail, so I intend to invite you now to explore those with our presentation from Nina. Thank you.
Lovely. Thanks, Lisa. Good afternoon, everybody. My name's Nina Coakley. I'm Head of Change, and I'm going to spend a bit of time now just setting out what the report is proposing for discussion this afternoon. So first of all, I just want to touch on the business case, and then I'll move in and take you through the transformation plan. So as has been discussed, the business case will articulate the strategic, the financial and the management case for change. It will present the current state for us as a council, and it will set out what we need to do to implement the future state. And whilst we're not here to review the business case itself today, I did think it would be helpful to set out the context of how it's being built and how it fits with this transformation plan. So we've been building up the business case as an organisation together since last summer, and it will set out a complex and fundamental programme of transformation for this council. Now, we've developed that work in phases. So between July and September, we completed discovery work as we sought to better understand, define and quantify our current ways of working. So we baselined our current activity across the whole council. We held over 45 workshops. We held interviews, conversations across the organisation. We reviewed over 150 documents. We completed an activity analysis across the wider organisation with a response rate of 40%, and we completed some readiness assessments for significant change so that we could really understand ourselves as an organisation. So since completing that initial baseline and those readiness assessments over the summer, our leadership team have established programmes and working groups bringing together our subject matter experts and colleagues across the organisation with support from our external partner at PwC to design our future operating model. And then from October, we began to develop that future operating model based on that data and evidence. And so that was developing detailed models that will underpin our target operating model that are absolutely relevant and relate to Dorset for each of our priority areas. So whether that's commissioning and procurement, customer experience, business management, and strategic enabling services, it will enable us to set out a very clear framework for how we will operate in the future. We also spent some time gathering further volumetric data. So whilst we had that baseline, we wanted to ensure we had a really deep understanding of how and how we provide services and how we provide information to residents currently. And so that data will be the basis for which our financial case and in the business case will be based. And that will tell us how much we're doing of each activity and how different that needs to be and what the financial framework will be around that. So those activities inform the outline business case and have been further developed during December and January, and is what you will see culminate in the full business case that will come through to Cabinet at the end of January. So just a reminder of those key milestones for the business case. So we had a conversation at Cabinet on 19th of November where the outline business case and the draft transformation plan were approved. And since then, we've done some work to develop both of those. And today, by assessing our progress to date and providing feedback, we're really seeking your review and your steer as a committee to help us ensure that the transformation plan is ready to be implemented once the business case is approved at the end of the month. So now I'm going to kind of shift a little bit and intend to guide members through a summary of the transformation plan, and will provide opportunities for questions and reflections for your steer and shaping. So as has been really well articulated by Councillor Wilson and Lisa, the transformation plan is a framework document, and it sets our strategy and our approach for transformation over the next 4 years. It builds on the foundations of our successful transformative approach since 2019 and the inception of Dorset Council, and has enabled us to learn lessons and develop and iterate the way that we do things to develop our transformation plan today. The transformation plan will help the council to deliver its vision and the priorities set out in the council plan. And it will also align to the Dorset Council medium-term financial plan. It will be our guiding strategy for all current and future transformation. And this allows for the work itself to flex and adapt as needed over time to ensure that our transformation and change activity remains relevant to the changing needs of residents over the course of this administration over the next 4 years. But it also enables us to provide that framework to ensure that all business cases, not just the business case coming forward this month, but all future business cases align to our vision, align to our priorities, and align to our ambition for Dorset. The Dorset Council Transformation Plan, it will be enabled by other key strategies. So we need to work as one organisation together to ensure that we can deliver this. So strategies such as our people and culture strategy, children and young people's plan, customer strategy. There are numerous strategies across the organisation that that will enable us to deliver this transformation plan. And it's not an exhaustive list, those strategies. It's intended to give an indication of the cross-council work that is required for our successful delivery. So I'm mindful that I couldn't get them all, I couldn't put them all up on there for you. But the transformation plan will give us our clear structure and our decision-making guidance that we need for all change. It includes a target operating model, our design principles, and that key governance framework. And I'll be seeking your steer from members today that this does appropriately set that out over the next 4 years. Since the last draft came through Cabinet in November, we've evolved the transformation plan, listening to feedback from colleagues and from members. And so there's been 2 key amendments of note since the previous version in November. The first being the addition of a proposal of a new programme to better reflect the Council's ambition for community partnership and devolution and facilitation. So this is a new development and it will need some work to evolve and some engagement with Cabinet and officers over the next few weeks to get that in some shape. These 5 programmes, this 5th programme also sits alongside our existing proposed programmes around customer, commissioning and procurement, business management and strategic and enabling services. It just provides a very clear, visible commitment to our ambition around community partnership. The other material change is around the evolution of our financial ambitions. So as per the outline business case, we've set out a range of benefit savings in the transformation plan, but the report does now also include a target figure for our future council in year 1 of our transformation plan. So for 25-26, it sets out a target figure of £10 million of recurrent revenue savings for delivery. The detail and implementation plans for delivery will be what's coming forward in the business case at the end of January. But this sets out our commitment. So over the life of the transformation plan, we will radically transform the way that the council operates. And this plan sets out our intent and our commitment of the council to do this. The document in the papers sets out the following structure. So it's structured through these 7 key headings. And so our transformation vision and ambition, as we seek to revolutionise our operations, technology and processes to better serve our customers. Really important we get that set out and very, very clearly defined. And that's included in the document for your consideration. And we want to do this by reshaping our operating model. So the way we do things in line with our transformation priorities. The second half of the plan is focused on how we'll do it. So that's about the structure, the phasing, the governance model, and the change management approach. So it clearly sets out our ambitions and our approach for these elements. And then our 5 key priorities for the transformation plan are set out and explained in the document itself. And all of our benefits are measured against these 5 key priorities. So we want to very clearly set this out at the outset. What are our priorities and what will we monitor and measure ourselves against as an organisation? These priorities enable the council to ensure that all changes that come forward over the next 4 years can be measured and, importantly, aligned and consistently mapped to our target operating model to ensure that all of our changes are consistent with our vision and our ambition for Dorset. So this is true of the Our Future Council business case, but it will also be true of any other business case that will come forward over the next 4 years. So we will want to make sure that all of our change aligns to our priorities and our future operating model. So the transformation plan itself, as we've said, is arranged into 5 strategic programmes, and they are a combination of specific business area redesign and commercial opportunities. And then we have 4 enabling work streams that are working across all of those programmes to make sure we have conditions for success. But alongside those, as part of that whole council transformation delivery, we recognise that there are also service change activities that will also need to continue over the next 4 years. So some of those service change activities might include programmes around social care sufficiency. They might include programmes around climate or nature, or around Weymouth 2040, modernising waste operations. If there's any work that comes forward around service change, we will need to make sure we still understand that and it's still mapped and governed through our transformation and change programme. So all of that transformation and change activity, it will be governed essentially through what is at the top half of this diagram. So through Cabinet, and periodically through committees such as this in overview, or through scrutiny, audit and governance, we will want to make sure we have the relevant scrutiny and oversight from a political level. But there's also a members steering group that has been set up to ensure that councillors are able to steer any critical decisions that need to be made around transformation. Those terms of reference have been refreshed, and Councillor Wilson is reviewing membership, including, I believe, a commitment to expand to include cross-party representation. So that will be an opportunity for steer of transformation over the next 4 years. And then we have a transformation board, which is the officer board, led by the senior leadership team, to ensure that regular monitoring and accountability, measurement and performance of transformation is managed and maintained. The last layer in that governance oversight at the top of the diagram there is the development of a council-wide design authority. And this is where we intend all change to be reviewed at a business case stage to ensure that everything that we do aligns to our target operating model and our vision for Dorset Council. A common experience in transformation is for disparate projects to happen in different parts of an organisation, and what happens is then we are asked for multiple resources for multiple projects all at the same time, and it really slows and impacts our ability to deliver. So therefore, through the transformation plan and through that design authority, we have really reinvigorated our drive to maintain a single view of all change and transformation across the organisation. And that will enable us to take really intentional decisions around changes that will be made, whether that's whole council or service change activity, and make sure that everything aligns to our future vision for Dorset. And that will enable us to get into the detail at an officer level around resourcing requirements and deliverability. The design authority will be supported by a technical design authority, which will be responsible for ensuring that all changes that have an impact on data or technology are managed and coordinated in this very central way. It will remind us and enable us to consider our applications, use of applications, and development of our future architecture. Though that technical design authority will own our future architecture plans for the organisation and will work alongside governance to make sure decisions are data-led. So this just summarises the programme structure. In terms of the 5 programmes of work that I've talked about, so strategic and enabling services, commissioning and procurement, customer experience, business management and ways of working, and our community facilitation partnership programme. It also just represents our 4 enabling work streams, which cut across all of those to ensure that as a programme of work, we are working together to make sure that we are successfully delivering and considering all the required impacts, all the required implications, dependencies and activities that we need to in a programme of this size. And the transformation plan sets out the scope of each of these programmes. So I just wanted to give you a bit of an overview of each of these programmes. As I say, all of this is in the report, but each of these programmes will undertake specific activities. And the detail of those are, you've got an overview in the transformation plan, and then the detail of the delivery and the implementation plans will be what will come forward in the business case. But in terms of strategic and enabling services, this is going to be all about changing the way that we operate so that we can work more effectively as an organisation, and it will be driven by evidence-based decisions, both across our operating model and including aspects of technology to make sure that those align, and we're really thinking about those decisions from a technology position all the way over the course of the programme. Commissioning and procurement will be about streamlining the way we commission and procure services and ensuring the best value for money. Customer and customer experience will be about being more consistent, more effective, and more responsive to the changing needs of customers. We need to realign our customer model to make sure that we can make the best use of technology, to allow us to spend less time as officers in the organisation on manual tasks and more time helping residents who do need us most. And so our customer model will always continue to offer the ability for someone to phone us up and ask us a question. But we will also use digital tools for those who are able to access our services in a different way and in a more immediate way than we might do now. But absolutely, those who still need to pick up the phone and call us, that's absolutely an option that they will still have. And then in terms of business management and ways of working, this is about joining up the ways that we operate across the organisation so that we can be consistent in our service level in different parts of the organisation so that everybody experiences the same service, whichever department you are liaising with. And then community partnership, that's around our development of closer, more inclusive collaboration with our communities, with towns, parishes and partners to ensure that through preventative practice, we really enable opportunity for all of our residents and customers to thrive. So in terms of monitoring the transformation plan, we have already in place, and we will continue and enhance our monthly monitoring against the baseline that we've spent all this time setting up and establishing. We want to make sure that all of that monitoring is undertaken by those key governance groups that we've just gone through, just to make sure that each of those have the right information rolled up for them to monitor activity. We will be tracking all of our benefits against the 5 transformation priorities, and we will be integrating key performance indicators into the Council's performance management framework, which is aligned to our Council plan, so you are able to monitor and understand progress in totality across the organisation. In terms of our 5 priorities and our benefit levers, you can kind of divide those 5 into 2 key areas. So automation and technology enablement, demand management and ways of working. These really help us drive improvements in productivity. So these will be used to provide the rationale for any savings that can be achieved through consolidation and standardisation. And so what we'll have a suite of metrics in place that we will use to monitor progress against each of those in line with the baseline. And then our consolidation and standardisation and spend reduction and income generation will directly impact our establishment and our commissioned spend baseline. So through standardisation, some roles across the organisation will be consolidated. It will lead potentially to a reduction in FTE and reduction in cost across the organisation. So that might be removal of vacant roles, stopping some external recruitment, with the exception of key frontline roles. It will be a programme of not replacing some colleagues as they might leave the organisation over natural turnover. We'll have a programme of reskilling in place across the organisation that will also enable some colleagues to work in other roles and transition from one team to another in line with the types of roles that we'll need as part of our future model. And so we'll be tracking and monitoring all of this across the life of the plan. So the evidence has indicated that by responding to these opportunities, the council could save between £18 and £35.5 million. And that's made up of the following categories you've got there. And part of the work we've been doing since the outline business case has been to refine these figures and evolve these figures as we've got more and more data and volumetrics through our analysis. So at the moment, this is our current understanding and our current estimations, but I do need to acknowledge that sometimes these will move as we finalise the business case, and the business case will set out the rationale for these benefit ranges in more detail. I've added in here just that note around the requirement to deliver £10 million in year one, and the breakdown that we're anticipating from the evidence we've got that would be a reduced spend of £9 million on employees and a reduced commission spend by £1 million. As I say, this is all data and evidence-based, so this is all based on the interviews, the surveys, the information that we've undertaken over the past 6 months. And just a note around there's currently a £3 million investment that was agreed by Cabinet in November. So that investment is what we will begin to use to invest in our technology, invest in the tools that we require to deliver the capabilities we need for the plan. And the detailed costs will come through in the business case. So apologies, I know that's a lot of information, so appreciate everybody listening to that. I'm going to hand back to Lisa now to remind us of the report recommendations and welcome your comments and suggestions.
Thank you, Nina. Really comprehensive run through of the transformation plan, which is important for the Chamber to have that real context and background to what we're asking of you today. So we will now move to open session and back to Chair to guide us through that. And reminder of our report recommendations. This is about reviewing the scope of the transformation plan and giving us your feedback and hopefully recommending that to support its endorsement at Cabinet. Evaluating that proposed governance framework illustrated in the plan to ensure it provides consistent whole council oversight, and to comment on proposal for future scrutiny of our future council. Place and Resources Scrutiny Committee for the overall assurance and for the overall assurance of risk and governance to be conducted at Audit and Governance Committee. So your views on that. Hand back over to you, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Nina, and thank you, Lisa, and thank you for all the tremendous work you've put in on doing this piece of work. It is a very ambitious piece of work, and it actually means that all of us, every one of us in the council, all the councillors, the workforce, are all involved, and I want to make sure that everybody gets a say and everybody takes part in the debate. And so I think we'll go forward with that. I think that I don't need to read out the recommendations to consider. No, I think you've all got them before you. I don't know if George can put them up on the screen so that we can see them. But it's really for us to endorse those. But if there's anything that we wanted to add, then obviously that is for you to suggest. And we can add another recommendation to the Cabinet if necessary. We really can't change any of the recommendations going forward because it's really stating the case rather than actually, us to actually try and change that, because we've got this far. And really, it is a framework for change. It is very critical that we all take part, and cross-party working is absolutely key in this. And so everyone will have their say. So can I then start asking questions? And I've got a couple of people already. I think Paul wanted to ask or state something first? Thank you.
Councillor Paul Kimber, representing Portland. Thank you, Chair, for your statement on when he was winding up. My first point is I'd like a copy of the question from Unison and obviously the reply that to be circulated forthwith, and hopefully that I know some of the stuff we're putting forward is if you like, in the confidential area. My concern always is the needs of the worst off in our communities, and really for us to hold our feet to the fire, as it seems to be the modern concept these days, to see if it does do that. I know the staff we've got is probably the best any of us could wish, and listening to the statements today, that clearly, as always on my mind, my thanks to particularly to the skills and expertise of the staff. I wanted to raise, and I've raised this before, Chair, you spoke about partnership, and that's always interesting to me, the partnership with community and people. And I want to give you an example that Preston in Lancashire really did develop the needs to buy within their own area. And they came back to me when I was explored this more, with the amount of work this created in their own communities. And I really ask that of you and of this workshop today, is to say what is being done locally, that we can say we are creating or passing the work through to our local communities. I look forward to the debate as we go forward, and that's about as much as I can say at the present. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Have we got anyone that wants to answer? Yeah, we've got Aidan, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, colleagues. Aidan Dunn, Exec Director for Corporate Development. And if I can respond to Councillor Kimber's question, specifically around the Dorset pound, essentially, how we as a local authority spend a lot of money in terms of buying services, buying goods and services. How can we bring that, make sure that we spend as much of that as possible within Dorset, within the procurement regulations? That's the challenge. So that actual piece of work falls outside of our future council. And what it does fall into is our overall commercial strategy that's been approved by Cabinet and Council previously. So we're very much putting the emphasis on spending locally as part of the social value aspect of procurement. And the change in national procurement regulations will enable us to do even more. So what it enables us to do is sort of unpack our larger procurements into smaller sizes, which makes them more attractive to local organisations, and it enables us to sort of present them for local organisations. So with my finance hat on, we still need to make sure that we're competitive in our procurement process and we get good value. With my wider economy hat on, I can really see the merits of spending that money locally. And we've got to tread a very careful line of value for money, competition, compliant with procurement regulations. But I can assure you that we're on it, we'll continue to on it, and there's further opportunities with the commercial strategy. Thank you.
Thank you, Aidan. Then we've got quite a list of people. First, I've got John Orrell on here, if you wouldn't mind, John, putting forward.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, John Orrell, Melcombe Regis, which is Weymouth Town Centre. Two observations, then a question. One observation is, I thought it was a good question from Unison. I was surprised that the result came back, they couldn't answer them because that was in the business case. And if that's the situation, it would be more helpful if we could examine the business case rather than be presented with this rather high view and more bland oversight, because it's hard to disagree with this. But what we really need to consider is the business case, because that's where the nuts and bolts is. So that's my first observation. I'll probably approve the recommendations because it's hard not to, but I'm frustrated that we can't go into the detail because that's where the devil is found. The first observation. Second observation, I noticed PricewaterhouseCoopers here. One of the things I like to do for organisations is put their name and then into Google with the name scandal afterwards and see what comes up. And it was quite easy fishing ground, because what I've just found doing that was this particular firm is involved with advising governments on how to invent tax code, and then it goes out to corporate clients and exploits the loopholes it has embedded in the tax code to enable corporations to avoid tax. So, and then the irony is that then that same organisation comes to local councils to advise them how to cope with the diminished tax receipts that their national government has achieved. So the net result of that, taking Paul's point, the impact on the poor is that this process takes money away from poor people and gives it to billionaires. And by involving PricewaterhouseCoopers, we are colluding in that. So I'd hope in future, if we go through this exercise, we would seek our advice from people other than international tax-avoiding corporations. Second observation. Now the question is like I looked at how much this depends on computerization technologies. I found 36 references in the document. I'm worried about technology because I've seen the damage that can be done in the NHS. Mr. Bates versus the Post Office for Fujitsu. Southern England had a Fujitsu contract for information for health, and we lost billions, literally billions, to Fujitsu, and didn't get any useful product. So my worry is if we're basing a lot of this plan on information technology, which rightly we should do, can we make sure that we depend on local firms, national firms, that have a proven track record in delivery for councils and aren't taken in by the sweet talk of international firms like Fujitsu and their like, because they're very good at writing contracts, but they're terrible at delivering solutions. So can we make sure we get a good, reliable domestic supplier with a good track history? That's the question.
Thank you, John. Again, have we got anyone that can answer that, please? Yeah, Aidan, thank you.
Thank you. If I could come back slightly firmly for me on those points. So we talk about and I'll join up the two connections. So you have your views on PricewaterhouseCoopers. You've done your research. So from a local authority perspective, we did our due diligence. We had a competition. We checked that PwC, who we appointed, were appropriate for this work. What is crucial, I think, is that we as a council recognise that, frankly, we're a little bit behind many other councils in this piece of work, and we need to catch up and get ahead. And to do that, we need to engage with experts who can get us there quickly, and experts that have helped other councils proven to do this work and to get there quickly. The technology that we're describing is already available and operating in other councils. And so what we're trying to do is have some expertise, use the expertise of PwC to help us to build a business case to adopt technology that's already available so that we as an authority can catch up on the level and offer the same level of service that many other councils are already providing. And then secondly, it will help us reduce our costs as an organisation so that we can transfer that funding to really support our vulnerable people. So we did our due diligence on PwC, and this is proven work, and we're confident in what we're doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Aidan. Does that answer your question? What, or go somewhere towards it?
Noted. Thank you.
Right. The next on our list, we've got Sherry. Thank you, Sherry.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Councillor Sherry Jesperson, Hillforton, Upper Tarrants Ward. I like to make comments on just three areas to start off with, if I may. But first of all, to absolutely echo Councillor Orrell's remarks at the beginning about what exactly it is here that we're discussing. This is a really good document. I have no problem with it at all. But what we needed to see, or what we also need to see as the overview committee, is the next document, the business case. And that's what I think we should have dedicated an entire afternoon with the Joint Overview Committee to doing, because, as Councillor Orrell says, there's very little to disagree with in this case, because it's so high level and it's so broad brush that I'm sitting and thinking, yep, I'm happy with all of this. And that is not scrutiny. That if I'm being given something that I can't find anything to query or disagree. So thank you for this very high level report. I'm very happy with it. But can we also set aside time when the overview committees on behalf of the membership at large and the people we represent get to see the detail that's in the business case, the next document, because as I understand it, that's going straight to Cabinet, and that's not how this process is meant to work. So if that's my first overarching comment that I'd like to make. And as a corollary to that, of course, to say it's extremely difficult to critique this level of report when we haven't seen the Price Waterhouse report. We saw the price when we did this process before. We saw the Price Waterhouse report in confidence. It was issued. I have it here. Some of you who are as old as me might remember it. That's the Price Waterhouse report and the local partnership report that they did, covering all of this work prior to local government reorganisation and going unitary. And I found it very interesting to look at that document again and see how little has changed between 2018 or 2017, when we looked at that document, and now. So I think it's very hard for us to have any meaningful discussion of this without having seen the Price Waterhouse report. And I would very much expect that we will see that document, even if it's a restricted document, before any of this goes to Cabinet. So those are my overarching points. The 3 points I would like specifically to raise are they're very simple and straightforward. The first one is on digital inclusion, which is a really important part of all of this digital shift. Digital shift has been a really important part of our programme throughout. Now, there is emerging evidence that digital shift, digital inclusion, is a bit more nuanced than it was when we started to talk about this 5 years ago. And we have to have care with the assumptions that if a person is digitally literate at the age of 70, that they are still digitally literate at the age of 89. The reason being, we thought that we worked on the assumption that that time would take care of the people who were digitally excluded, because we're all digitally literate, aren't we? So it's not going to apply to any of us. Turns out, because of the speed of digital change, people come back into digital exclusion later in life, not at a particular point, but later in life. Now, can we be aware of that when we're making our plans for the support that we're putting in place for the digitally excluded? Because it's not, as we hoped it would be, a kind of a naturally reducing number. It gets smaller, then it gets bigger again. And I think that's something that I've never heard discussed in in this chamber about what we now understand about who the digitally excluded are. So I just leave that out there as a comment. My other area I would like to comment on is the community facilitation and partnership theme. This is a key area of change. It's been identified in the report, and we're looking here at partners delivering services. Now, we've been here before, some of us, and already I'm picking up the same concerns that we did in 2018 when we talked about partners delivering services, particularly in relation to town and parish councils. The situation is no different now than it was previously. The vast majority of our parish councils, excellent though they are, and they are excellent, I have 9 of them, they are not in the position to deliver services. They don't have the functionality to do that. So if we are talking, as we are in this theme that's throughout this document, about shifting the delivery of services to partner organisations, the underpinning concern I have here with that approach is the potential democratic and accountability deficit. When Dorset Council delivers services, members of the public elect members to oversee the quality of that service, the delivery of services, and it's a democratic accountability. With the NHS, we have democratic accountability because we elect our MPs and they appoint the minister. Town councils have democratic accountability because they are elected. The 46% of residents who don't live in a town, I can't remember if it's 46 or 42% of our residents who don't live in a town, don't elect the town council that might be asked to deliver their services, and so there is no accountability. So there's a big question here. If we are passing over the delivery of services to unelected bodies or to deliver services to people who don't get to elect them, where is the accountability and where is the democracy in the delivery of that service? It's a question. I don't expect you to come back with the answer now, but it's a very, very important thing that we have to flag up now, because it sounds very easy, and everyone says, well, we'll pass the delivery of services to our partner organisations, and we all nod and say, yeah, that's going to work. If you want to know where this works and when it fails, that's the difference between the NHS, democratically accountable, and GP surgeries, not democratically accountable. And some of us had a great surprise a number of years ago when we discovered just how unaccountable GP services are. So I put it out there as a thing that needs very careful consideration. The third area where I would like just to have some further information, and that's in the financials. It's really difficult to know what we're looking at here in terms of the money. You put in there that we have a target figure and a range of savings between 10 million, but between 18 million and 37.5 million. That 38.5 million, that's an enormous range of savings, isn't it? Having looked again at the PricewaterhouseCoopers report from last time and local partnerships, what we were told last time when we went unitary, that we were looking at 76.2 million of cumulative net savings from reorganisation alone. And I quote, this would deliver a budget surplus. This would deliver a budget surplus of 46.7 million by 2024-25. Actually, we are looking at a budget deficit of 50 million, aren't we? So that's and that's in 5 years. That's the degree of variability that we can get. It's profit savings can be measured, but events, dear boy, events can't. We had no idea when we signed up to those figures that a war, a pandemic, and a massive inflation was coming our way. And I think I would really like, when we come back to look at the financials in the business case, can we be wiser? Can we learn from what we experienced this time round that these numbers are really, really difficult to predict? They're really difficult to nail down. And I know that the financial savings isn't the only driver for this transformation. It's a good thing, even if we don't save a penny, because it's going to deliver better services. But the experience that we've had about how the financials worked out was very, very different than what we were predicting. In point of fact, we saved 123 million, not the 76.2 million. So we saved way more than we expected, but we ended up having to spend more than we could ever have predicted. And that's the reality. I feel that if we're looking at these figures, the same sets of figures produced by Pricewaterhouse this time round, we need to just be wiser this time round. So again, it's extremely difficult to say anything about this document or anything about without having seen the PricewaterhouseCoopers working out in the margins. And until I've seen that, all I can say about this is it looks all right so far, which is, as I say, is not proper scrutiny in my view. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the very comprehensive comments and questions there. Yes, we all felt that when we looked at this document, and I certainly did too, that it was too high level. But the thing is, if we don't bring everybody into the picture at this stage, then back later on, people will say, what happened? You know, how did it get to this place with the business case when it didn't go through the actual loops of what we expected? So remember, this is part of the whole system. We are just starting off with this. So it's important that we bring everybody to the table at this stage. I'm sure it will come back to the overview again, but I think some of the questions that you've asked are very obvious to all of us, and we all know what the sums are, and the sad situation with never being able to see the future. But who would want to do that when you look back over the last 5 years? So actually, I think we've got to be careful what we wish for or what we do, but we do need to put safeguards in place. Thank you for that. Who would like to answer? Yeah.
No, not at all. It's really important, and I endorse what you've just said, Chair. It's about different people have got a different history and experience and knowledge, some of which predates me, and so this is part of this process is bringing everybody up to speed. So I'll start in my response in the slightly delicate area of the role of overview versus the role of scrutiny. And this is why we as officers have put forward a recommendation number 3, the comment on the proposal that the future scrutiny of the transformation of the delivery is done by the Place and Resources Committee, Scrutiny Committee, with assurance around the whole process is held by Audit and Governance. So this is what we're sort of recommending to make sure that as we all come up to speed, as we have a clear plan approved by Cabinet, then that's how the governance would work. So that's one of the recommendations. So clearly up for discussion today, and I think we've heard your views. I think I'd take so the role of overview in particular about having a view on policy as opposed to the specific detail. I think one of the crucial things in here for me in this report is it signals that we're trying to prioritise and organise much more as a single council rather than individual directorates. And this is quite signalling quite a significant change, and I think we'd welcome some comments on that because it will feel different both operationally within the council, but also politically as some of our programmes accelerate and others slow down. I'll comment on the finances, and I was going to come back with the £123 million figure myself, and that's, I think your point is absolutely crucial, that these we can make our best assessment based on the best information that we have at the time, but who knows what will happen tomorrow, let alone next week. So the budget proposals for next year, we had a first publication of those yesterday for the People and Health Overview Committee. So they sort of set out the financial position, and we kind of acknowledge the risks around our future council about anything, and you can get a sense of the level of reserves and the level of contingency that I've set aside to try and put it within the range that you're describing there. But clearly that can be explored at the scrutiny committees next week. But I want to acknowledge and recognise that. And the final point around communities and the importance of that work stream, this picks up about 5 different aspects that we're grappling with at the moment and tries to bring them into a single home. So I'm going to invite my colleague Sam Crowe to comment in a moment, but there's a few issues here. Our future council, the operating model that we talk about, is fundamentally our first kind of point is that we want communities to be able to provide support to the residents by having thriving communities, thriving voluntary sector. So that's a crucial part of the operating model. We need to do more in that space. Secondly, the devolution white paper published ahead of Christmas talks about not only combined authorities, but it also talks about that sense of double devolution, transferring services, assets down. So we need a sort of a home for that. Thirdly, the council plan, the new council plan, recognises communities as an overarching theme, one of the priorities. We need to get a grip of that. Fourthly, within our directorates, my colleagues here, we've got different models at the moment and different localities, be it children's, be it adults, be it place. So we kind of need to get a coordination for that. And then finally, there's this growing agenda around NHS partnerships. So this is a hugely complicated picture, which we want to bring together. And Sam's got the answer.
I don't have the answer, but that was a fantastic setup, wasn't it? I think I was going to say it was really interesting, your comment about that democratic oversight assurance on quality of, what is it that we're asking to do in partnership with communities. It's really, really important. It's far too early, I think, for us to be prescriptive about what might happen, where and when. But it is an aspiration which connects the way that Dorset Council is going to have to work in the future really, really strongly with that ambition I set out in the council plan. If we're going to move towards more of a communities for all aspiration, and we've still got a lot of work to do to scope that properly, how do we start to change that relationship and be more, it's a paradox really, we may be more active in communities, but actually doing less because we're developing frameworks or approaches that we can understand more how to invest or enable or build that sort of infrastructure support that sometimes is so critical for communities to do more on their own. And there are lots and lots of opportunities. We're thinking about 3 major areas of work, if you like, in that programme. As Aidan's described, one of the most complicated is how we work alongside NHS partners to start to see the development of really, really strong integrated neighbourhood teams. Now, so far, that work looks very much like it's a conversation between public sector statutory organisations. But I know from my own experience that where you can really involve community and volunteers working alongside general practice, for example, you can have some really, really strong non-medical models of care that really get at the heart of building trusted relationships, building more confidence, and putting more support closer to people where they live. So it's the start of a journey. The other 2 areas that we would anticipate in that programme are absolutely the connection with the transformation programme and how we start to change how we work so that as an organisation we can simplify our approach to working with communities, depending on whether you're working in the place directorate or public health or children's or adults. There are different approaches, there are different projects, there are different programmes. We need to start to work much, much more creatively together as a single organisation and put more resource where we know that it will have the most impact in those neighbourhoods. The third question is, this might previously have been described as area boards, but how do we have a better presence in communities and neighbourhoods where we can facilitate that conversation to happen between Dorset Council and organisations who might want to step forward and say, we think we've got some of the answers, we think with a little bit more resource we could do more in this space. How do we get that going in a way that's right for that neighbourhood or that locality? So I hope that helps give a little bit of a flavour, but my overall message is this is complex, it's at an early stage. We would welcome lots and lots of different views on how we build this properly together as we go forward.
Thank you. And if people didn't catch it, it was Sam Crowe, Director of Public Health and Prevention. Thank you very much for that comprehensive answers. We have got a lot of people asking questions. Please do not duplicate what people have asked already. So let's, because we've got to move forward, okay? So we've got Roland, I think we missed out. So Roland's next. Thank you.
I didn't miss out. I think Sherry's just said everything I wanted to say about the sequence of events in the past. And we haven't, transformation I think is a meaningless word. I don't think it should be used at all. It's an action plan, but that's just a minor thing. I think a lot of good points have been covered. I've really been interested in what's been said here, especially by the officers. The report is fantastic. It's very comprehensive. I really admire the whole way it's been done professionally and the way it's come out. But I think the first sentence, if I'd been asked to report it, would be to say that Dorset Council depends on its staff. They are the vital part. There are lots of other vital things in the report, but we never mention the fact that this council depends on fantastic staff. The staff that are here today, doing all sorts of different things. The staff that are out gritting the roads so that we get home safely. The staff that are out doing the bins at the moment. The staff that are in offices trying to deal with all the problems, social problems, everything else that we have. We should be praising them and giving them a part in this report to say, so that they don't come to us and say we haven't been consulted, which is what the first part of this meeting was about, which I think is a great pity. So that's something which I think should be changed in the report. The second thing is there's an underlying assumption that we're going to go on having to make cuts for the next 5 years and that we might have to get rid of staff. We don't know what challenges this government or any other government might suddenly place on us. We might have a war in a few weeks' time or a month's time. We might have new responsibilities thrust upon us, as we did with social services when they came into our realm rather than being part of national health work. All sorts of things could happen, opportunities in the future, which we may not be ready for, and which should go into this report rather than assuming that we have to lay off staff. We should be thinking about what will happen if we actually lay our hands on larger sums of money because a government comes along, possibly this government, realises that there are rural areas in this country which need looking after and suddenly says we want this, this and this done and we want Dorset Council to do it. So I think we should be ready for taking on new challenges and that should be part of the report at some stage. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't know that that needs an answer. It's more or less a statement. So let's go on. I think it's Shane Bartlett next. Thank you, Shane.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Councillor Shane Bartlett, Cabinet Member for Planning and Emergency Planning and Ward Member for Wimble Minster. Could I just return to slide 11 from the officer presentation, please? Thank you. Thank you. Okay, Madam Chairman. In terms of my portfolio for planning, just to give the members of the committee some understanding, planning is the seventh biggest planning authority in the country. We have a seat at the table of the Big Eight with government, so we have quite an input into planning nationally within the country. My predecessor oversaw a transformation project within planning to bring the 6 predecessor councils down to one planning platform. So I'm somewhat surprised in terms of the relevance of planning and how important it is that it's not being seen as a priority within our future council. And I know we're in early days, but I would have a lot more assurance and my team would have a lot more assurance if on the right hand of that column of the direct service change, that planning has a place in there. So far in this meeting, I haven't heard any mention of planning, which I find somewhat of a surprise, being as we are such a big planning authority. You will be aware that we have to deliver a local plan by December 26th. And I'm grateful for Councillor Jesperson saying that she wants to critique something. I'm hoping she's going to take this up as a course of action. That local plan that we have to deliver by December 26th, we're up against the deadlines on that. It's going to be a push to achieve that, particularly with the housing numbers. And as you'll be aware, within government, planning is in somewhat of a change at the moment, to put it politely, and the officers are still somewhat in the dark with some of the stuff that's coming down from Westminster. So my plea to the members on the committee is to ask that planning is put into the mix here as a priority within the Council for our future plan. I'm grateful for the limited conversation I've had with Councillor Wilson, and I've asked for corporate to meet with my planning team and with Councillor Wilson and myself to discuss this further. So that's my question, Madam Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Shane. Who would like to say? Thank you, Nina. If you'd like to answer that, thank you.
Lovely, thank you, Chair. Nina Coakley, Head of Change. Thank you, Councillor Bartlett. In terms of the activity we've undertaken over the last few months, we have done quite an exercise to review all of our existing projects and transformation activity that's been underway across the directorates, with a view to enable us to gain a kind of single overview of all of that activity and essentially reprioritise to ensure that we have capacity and deliverability to get on with our future council and this new transformation plan. As part of that, we were able to review activity and realign them. And so within that, actually planning transformation and planning future change sits within that place service change kind of bucket at the end there. So in that directorate service change, planning is sat in there. There has been a huge amount of activity that's been successfully delivered in planning transformation over the last 5 years, and that's been recognised in the annual reports that we have published through Cabinet over the previous 4 years. But I think what we're really keen to ensure is that we understand the scope of the next phase of work for planning transformation, and that absolutely sits in scope within that planning service change. And so it is acknowledged and it is in there, I suppose, is the reassurance I want to try and give you, Councillor Bartlett. In terms of our future council, we also will have representation of all services, including planning, in the way that we respond to customers. So whether you're a customer accessing a planning service or a customer accessing a benefit service or a customer accessing a travel service, we want our customers to ensure that they get a consistent service. So when we look at some of the tools, the systems, the ways of working that we will be employing over the next 3-year programme, planning is absolutely front and centre as part of that with our other services. So, so my kind of takeaway from that is actually it is in there, and I am committed that that is in there. It's absolutely a key part of transformation for Dorset Council.
I think that Shane wants to come back with a supplement. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, and thank you to the officer for the reply. I'm still not given complete assurance over it. I mean, the place directorate is huge with everything that it deals with, and as I've already said, I think planning, in terms of its importance within this council authority being a statutory planning authority and it being the 7th biggest planning authority in the country, and the fact that we need to get this local plan over the line by December 26th, and we're going to need AI in which to do that. I would still have a great assurance if planning, and this is my plea to the committee, that planning was actually headlining within this document, because in the report there's really no mention of planning. It doesn't appear on that slide. And in terms of planning, in terms of transformation, is going to continue to receive the corporate support, for example, the ICT that it needs. But as I said, my plea is to the committee that planning is actually put in the documentation to give it that assurance, because the place service directorate is huge. I don't want to get lost in the mix. We can't afford for it to. The local plan is arguably going to be the biggest thing that we're going to be doing up until December 26 and beyond. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Shane. I don't think that needs a response, but unless Aidan want to.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Chair. And I think there's a presentational issue here. We've got some other crucial programmes for the Council that aren't named as well, such as the Adult Social Care Reablement Programme. We've got special educational needs, the £80 million programme. We've got climate and recovery. So there's a presentational issue, but I come back to my crucial point. As an organisation, we haven't the capacity or the money to be able to do everything for everyone immediately. And so what this model of change is about is having a much more comprehensive view and prioritisation mechanism. And that's what that diagram was illustrating. So it is going to get bumpy, but of course we will listen and understand what the kind of nationally mandated priorities are, as well as the local political priorities. But it's more of a prioritisation mechanism than we've had previously. And that's a crucial message for this coming from this report.
Thank you very much. I think we've got David Taylor next. Yes?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Lynn. Excellent presentation. Thank you very, very much. You know, it's good to see the rawness of it all, to see what we're actually heading for and what we're actually involved in. There are a few missing pieces which, of course, would expect me to say something, but I think that's what I was going to. The thing that gets me is the fact that in the report, we're looking at the 10 million here, 27, 100 million, whatever. It's just the fact that we need to look at the fact of the concentration of the percentages or the departments, and where we're looking at to see either make savings or make improvements, or actually encouraging to regeneration of money, actually, because I don't see that reverse action. I see it one way only and not improvements. When we changed to unitary authority and I was West Dorset District Councillor, when we moved first in, we were encouraged to make sure we regenerated and looked at options of making money within the council to actually safeguard ourselves. I don't see any of that language in here, apart from a couple of sentences to say we may look at it. So therefore, as this report goes, I would strongly emphasise the fact, like the staffing, as mentioned by Councillor Owen Tarr, is the fact that they are our biggest ally. But at the same time, they could be making regeneration or generating funds or opportunities within the council to actually make us actually more solvent. So there's a two-way process of looking at this, of our staff, for processes, etc. And I don't see that language in here. All I hear is cuts and savings, and I don't think that's the total right way of going forward. So my question is, can we include a bit more diverse angle on this? Because that's the sort of language we need. Thank you.
Thank you, David. I think it's Ben that's going to answer. Thank you. Oh, sorry.
Taylor. Sorry. I take on board your point, Councillor Taylor, but I would like to rewind to the presentation that the officer gave, where we outlined 5 priorities, of which savings was just one of them. I think we need to get ourselves all in the headspace where savings is absolutely critical this year, next year, and maybe not in 3 years, but it's only one dimension of what we're trying to do. And whether we need to make savings or not, we need to be future fit. We need to be an agile organisation. We need to have the right processes. So I totally take on board the point around how we can build in opportunity, but it's not all about cuts and savings. It's about actually how we can reconfigure the council. And really that's what I go into this with. Yes, we do need to make savings as part of that, but actually the main thrust is how do we deliver outcomes, better outcomes for our residents as a council.
Yep, thank you. I think we're going on now to Laura Beddow, who's online, I believe. Laura, are you there?
Apologies, Chair. I mistakenly raised my hand.
Speak up, please.
Apologies, Chair. I wasn't aware I'd raised my hand. I do apologise.
Thank you. We'll move on swiftly then to Andrew Parry. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Andrew Parry, West Parley Ward. Actually, I think it's very courageous of Councillor Bartlett to raise the subject of planning, because in the time it takes him to ask a question and get an officer reply, we've had a habit of the Minister changing their mind and policy in between. I feel very sorry for him in this respect. I think he's got a tough gig ahead of him in terms of the local plan. And he's quite right to sort of suggest that perhaps a recommendation from this committee should be to highlight planning as a specific, because we all experience it at a very, very significant level in our own wards. I do have to pull you up on something, Chair, which is your reference to cross-party working. You did sort of look in my direction on that one. I do have to remind you, of course, of your manifesto commitment not to work with Conservatives, and the public statements you've made to that effect as a party. So unless your leadership is going to eat a lot of humble pie and commit a huge political U-turn, I am not anticipating a call from your leader to offer a wide-scale whole of council working with the Conservative group. But we will endeavour to persevere as we can. What I did want to pick up on in terms of questions in the presentation was this issue around 40% staff participation. I have a concern around this. You know, we are edging towards 2/3 of the staff not responding to the surveys on something that we ultimately, as a council, are going to expect the staff to implement in policy changes. We really do need to see much better engagement from them and seek that reassurance that we are going to achieve the maximum levels of transformation possible without staff feeling that they have been ridden over roughshod and that we haven't taken into consideration their requirements. Perhaps we did run the risk in the way that this was survey was put about, of asking that sort of turkey voting for Christmas scenario, when at the same time we start talking about different ways of working, staff reductions and everything else. I appreciate that's a highly sensitive area, but I would like to see some reassurance around that subject. In respect of maximisation of transformation and customer service, and there's a cost savings element here, and I know Councillor Clifford has the brief to maximise cost savings, and tapering that with customer service, and they're not always the happiest of bedfellows. And I accept when I look around in the business world, Booth Supermarkets, famously in the north of England, took out its self-service tills because it was affecting customer service. Supermarkets today are now reporting that if you self-scan something 2 or 3 times and it doesn't go through, you feel that you've done your bit and you'll put it in your shopping bag and take it home with you. You know, there is this tendency. So if we're going to say, well, we'll start using more parking apps, for example, or billing apps, and they don't work, are we going to actually then see, for example, a reduction in the actual revenues we receive because people give up engaging with us? And we have to understand what's going on there. The other point I wanted to say is we have because of the very wide banding we've seen in some of the reports and some of the potential savings and transformation efficiencies, I am very twitchy that we have become over-reliant on a corporate management body report to deliver what needs to be transformational work. And no disrespect to PwC or anybody else in that area, but they generally aren't known to be the mavericks of business that come up with those enterprising ideas that produce genuinely transformational and fresh ways of thinking. And I think that responsibility probably sits inside this council. We need to come up with those solutions.
Thank you, Andrew. Who would like to answer that? Chair?
First point regarding cross-party participation, I very much encourage it and would like to seek a way. There was, on one of the slides, we showed the governance model, and we had a members' steering committee. I would like to see members and representatives from multiple parties on that members' steering committee, and that's something we will work towards. There is as you can tell, a bulk of work that we're trying to get through in January to get the budget set and get the cabinet paper ready. Then we will start to address some of those points. So you have my commitment to that. I think on the 40% point, I think actually towards the end of what your comment, you did actually answer the point. I've had experience of doing activity analysis elsewhere. People do react to it because they do sense what is coming, and it is a very tricky tricky procedure to try and perform an activity analysis. I take your points around employee engagement more broadly, and absolutely we need to see more than 40% employee engagement in our two-way communications. The activity analysis is quite a specific activity, which hopefully we've now executed and don't have to do again. But I do take your point around broader employee engagement and making sure that we're maximising that.
Can I just mention as well, I mean, let's not take this out of context. We are very much wanting to work cross-party. The manifesto is way back now, and that was all about whether we didn't get a majority and we needed to get somebody on our side. So this is totally out of context, Andrew Parry, and I'm very sorry that you brought it up. So let's go forward, all working together, and let's go forward, all singing from the same hymn sheet if possible. Thank you.
Just wanted to add, my overview committee is going to be able to receive a report in the next few days detailing the very points you're making about customer services. So it is something that's going to be addressed and will be discussed in a couple of weeks' time.
Thank you. There's always improvements to be made, whichever, and making progress is always important. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. It's David Northam, Upway and Broadway in Weymouth. I'd like to comment on the first recommendation, which was review the scope of the transformation plan and provide feedback and recommendations. I have one main item of feedback and several recommendations. Main item of feedback is I'm pleased that the report identifies so strongly the previous council's tendency to have stovepiped functions. And I think the figure 2, the target operating model, shows that very eloquently, how those replicated functions that were in previous separate parts of the organisation could be brought together. And I hope that there is success in doing that. Change of this type is never easy, and it needs to be gone through in a methodical way. And part of what I'm going to say in the recommendations is about that. So my first recommendation, I'd like a response from and for the overview committee to support, is that one difficulty in moving forward is where future change extends into our partners and providers. We're not delivering a lot of the services that the residents think we're responsible for. And through our commissioning activities, we are responsible for them, but they are through our partners and providers. And I'd like some assurance that that's being considered within the overall operating model, that what we change may have a consequence to the other parties. The second recommendation is that we should be looking for the automation savings, not only to deliver staff level and time changes, but also it should reduce the management level of support right the way up to executive directors. We've got an organisation which has been reported as being top heavy. If we're reducing generally, that should be included as well. Third one, changes need to be driven strongly from the top, and that needs to take forward with it the staff. So I'd hope that the team addressing this can make sure that shared objectives can be achieved so that the organisation succeeds in the future. And the last one, there's an awful lot of challenge in that 5-year, and I'd like to see a 1-year review as part of the governance and scrutiny activity, so that we actually do a sanity check after 1 year as a formal activity. Those are my 4 recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Aidan, I believe, will be answering those. I think there was 2 or 3 questions there. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I'll start with the stovepipe comment, which is a commentary I've made myself. I just want to be sort of clear on my perspective on this, is for the first 5 years of Dorset Council, our emphasis was on establishing the directorates and making them stronger. And as we've said in this paper, through that approach, we have achieved £123 million worth of savings. So it's been successful in that regard. But the sense that we've got as far as we can in that approach, and therefore the organisational pivot to put much greater emphasis across and look for further efficiencies there. So an evolution of this strategy as opposed to a criticism of a failed approach, if I may. Secondly, John, I'm going to give you a moment to warm up because you're looking at the commissioning lead, what it means for our partners. So perhaps if I could ask you to comment in a second on that particular work stream. The third bit about the shared objectives and to picking up the commentary around staffing and the level of staffing engagement, we started really engaging staff at the beginning, in the summer, 40% involved with the level, with the questionnaire. As Nina was outlining, there's been a whole series of conversations with staff, interview with staff. I think you were saying about 40, 45 or so. The level of engagement, we had an all-staff webinar this morning that Chief Exec led, and I gave a finance overview. We had 1,454 people on a webinar, just hearing these messages about what our future council means, what the implications of the budget is. So there's a growing interest and inevitably a degree of anxiety. And I think our union colleagues are advocating that really, really effectively, and it's important that we hear that. Of course, staff are going to be nervous. Fundamentally, this is about a smaller organisation, a smaller, more effective organisation, and we can't shy away from that either. So there's a combination of those factors, but I think it's absolutely right that this isn't all about internal. We've talked about internal arrangements. We've talked about relationships with communities. Sam covered that well. So perhaps, John, could I invite John Price to comment on relationship with providers, in particular from a social care perspective? Thank you, John.
Thanks, Aidan. So I mean, the programme does include this approach to commissioning and procurement, very much with a view to bring sort of consistency across the organisation. So some of the work we've done in the adult space the last few years has been very much in partnership with partners, providers. So lots of real learning from that, and fairness around price, but also a clear methodology to price. So taking that approach forward is one element of this piece of work, but also looking at different models, looking at, where we might integrate forward, where we might integrate backwards with providers would also be part of it. I think for the first year, there are some savings to look at around third-party spend, but it won't be limited to that, the work in the first year.
Thank you, John. Anyone else? You want to come back? Yes?
Last part, and it was the last part, was about the one-year review, and I just wondered whether Lisa or Nina might like to respond to that.
Sorry, I didn't catch that last bit.
So the last recommendation was about a one-year review, so that we don't wait until the end to decide whether it's good or bad, and there's a formal one-year review. I didn't see it. It might be in the document, but I may have missed it.
Thank you. I'm not sure. Yes, Lisa, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Yes, recommendation 3 is about inviting the committee to absolutely look at that. So how would they like us to consider that ongoing review through scrutiny process, and also, as Aidan said earlier, with our audit and governance committee as well, to think about risk and assurance over the programme, but scrutiny to absolutely be looking at delivery and the plan as it progresses. So timescales, we're really looking for your recommendations today. So that is absolutely helpful feedback and answers to that recommendation, so we can build that in as committee debates.
So yeah, so we can actually put that as a comment, and anything that you're making today will be listed in the minutes of this meeting and taken forward to the Cabinet. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. Steve Mercer, the Councillor for Backmoor Vale Ward. Ben, I noted at the start you said what this report isn't and what it is. And I get that piece. It's not the full business case. When I looked at the Gantt chart in section 7, forgive me if I tried to do a financial overview of that Gantt chart, it seemed to me that it was largely front-end loaded with cost and maybe back-end loaded with savings and cost measures. My fear with that is, and I'm addressing this at you, Aidan, with your 114 notice in front of you, which is essentially an insolvency cash flow test. My fear is that as we go through that cost element before we've got to the reward, that actually we run the danger of running out of cash. And that's my statement. And my plea is, I looked at the audit and governance agenda for the meeting coming up, and it has the quarterly accounts in it that started in July and end in September. So you've got July accounts, which are 5 or 6 or 7 months old, which have not been scrutinised by the council. So my plea to you is, when you put your business case in place, please give us the tools to do the scrutiny, the review and the overview that we need to do. And please put in it the milestones so that we can check, have these savings been made? Have those changes been implemented? Because the one thing, plans are all well and good until you engage the enemy. I'm not suggesting we're engaging an enemy, but we need to be really granular on the delivery of this stuff. And that is my plea: more regular financial review and more detailed scrutiny. You can take that as a rhetorical plea if you like.
Thank you. Who would like to take that up?
I'll take it rhetorically, but if I can make a couple of sort of quick comments. First of all, about the cash flow implications of this. So, first of all, to be clear, I haven't got a Section 114 notice in front of me that I'm poised to sign, just to reassure everyone. But there's a serious point here, absolutely. This is our explanation throughout the year, and what the budget papers say for next financial year is this is an increasingly tough environment for local government. Dorset Council is in the middle of the pack, reasonably well placed, but we need to take action now. We need to put our hands in our own destiny rather than just wait for more government money, because I doubt that will come. So hence the importance of a strategic plan that we're describing here. And inevitably, there's going to be a balance between upfront investment of technology to make sure that our systems are effective, and then reducing the workforce because we've automated our systems, for example. The alternative is to reduce the workforce and then put the technology in, and that's not good for our customers. And we, as a council, are in the fortunate position that we've just about got enough time and money to do the first approach, which is put the systems in and then reduce the workforce, rather than what we're seeing on other councils around who are in the emergency situation of having to make staff redundant wholesale. So that's the approach, and as a business case comes through, aligning that with our level of reserves and our contingency budgets, that's what you're starting to see over the budget in the next over the next couple of weeks. But in order to have confidence that that's working, we need really good live financial information. You are absolutely right. I'd like to say that the commentary around the audit committee is a bit of a timing anomaly. So what we've got, so the audit committee, you're absolutely right, is looking at the Q2 report next Monday, and that's past its sell-by date, effectively, because at the end of next week, we're publishing the Q3 report. So that's going to Cabinet. And then I think the March, it'll be the probably the February audit committee will be looking at the Q3 report. So we do catch up. There's been a bit of an anomaly, I think, catching up over the summer. But the fundamental point of members and officers need to be tooled up, very clear what our measures of success are, be it financial, be it systems implementation, be it impact on our residents. We need to be really clued up on that. And that is, we're just updating at the moment our performance framework around that to enable us as officers to do that, to enable Cabinet to do that, but also to enable the scrutiny committees to have access to that crucial information around the council plan as well as this. I sort of, I take comfort that you've got a degree of nervousness about this. This is a big project, and you as members want and need the tools to hold us for delivery, and we welcome that. We welcome that. I think we're in this together to try and to transform the council, better services at a lower cost. Thank you.
Thank you. You okay?
Could I just say, Aidan, please feel free to give us brief, pithy reports.
Thank you, Steve. It's nice to have a bit of light banter on this. And I quite see that we need to review some of these things and look at the scrutiny items and actually have up-to-date data to work on. And I think that is so true that for you to have brought that up. Thank you very much. Simon, I believe.
Thank you very much, Chair. Simon Gibson, representing Burwood. I had a New Year's resolution, which was when I came into the council, I was going to try and be my most positive self. I raise that because I fear on the first hurdle I'm going to fall to the wayside like all the rest of my resolutions, but I'm going to try my very best. So let's start with the positives, which for me is there's lots to like in the report. As has been said already, the priorities are broadly agreeable. The principles underpinning transformation are a no-brainer. We have a good record as a council of transforming ourselves. Point 4 in the report sets out really, really well, and I'm grateful to see it, the previous achievements around transformation. And I don't want to underplay ever the amount of effort that it's taken to get there, so thank you very much for that. And like any big organisation, if you don't continually transform, you will decay. And for us, that's not an option that we can tolerate. Where I get a little bit frustrated is the similar sort of frustrations that members have already expressed around what it is that's actually in front of us today. And without repeating myself, I do want to just pick up slightly on some of the points that you made, Aidan, because respectfully, I do disagree. We are the overview committee. We are not scrutiny. We should be looking ahead of it going to its decision making to try and improve it, ahead of it reaching adoption, which in this case is later down the line. For me, I find it very, very hard to do that, given that the Cabinet in November has already had a look at this. So a lot of the principles have already been debated, they've already been agreed. So if you, like me, like lots of the members around the room here today, sit solely on an overview committee, you might be wondering what your role is. What are we here for? Where can we truly make a meaningful impact to the plan? And for me, that sits somewhere between the granular detail and what we're being asked to do today. And what do I mean by that? It's quite frustrating knowing that information exists that you don't have access to, that would be, even at the very least, good context to the debate that we're having. We're being asked in recommendation 1 to comment on the scope. Sounds sensible. What would be helpful to determine the scope? It would be what financial envelope we would be working in. Now, the numbers are there, but I don't know what underpins it. Even on a broad level, I don't know what underpins it. You're asking us to talk about things like staffing levels, like income generation, without any granular detail, even as context, for us to put our own view as a committee onto that. I don't think as a committee we would be reasonably able to say we can fully endorse what's in front of us. And yet I don't want to be a stumbling block for what is fundamentally important, and I agree with. I agree with transformation. A lot of what is in there is very sensible indeed. But if you care about due process, these things are happening one too many times. I might sound like a broken record because I've raised this in other reports already this administration's term. Please treat the order at which things go through the democratic process with the due respect that it requires. That's my plea, not to anyone individually, but to anyone who's listening. I'm so grateful for some of the other bits that I've heard, and I want to try and be positive about it. But while I am talking about the democratic process, a lot of the questions I've got focus on part 10 of the report and the appendices about how the democratic process might work. I was hugely grateful for the portfolio holders' reassurance about the cross-party work in the steering group. I'm genuinely very grateful for that, so thank you very much. It was one of the questions I'd got, so it's a big tick, and I thank you for that. The one question I do have that I've never been sure on, sitting below that and below the Transformation Board, which is officer-led, is the Design Authority. That is not the most clear thing as to what that is. I remember from my time when we, as the previous administration, had the Performance Board, and there was a layered approach to that as well. Truthfully, I don't know what it is, and I don't know who sits on it. I don't know what decisions will be made there, and I don't know how we can scrutinise those decisions once they are made. So it's probably just a plea, not for today, but for when this comes to Cabinet. Can we see a little bit more about what that would look like? If I flag one particular thing, and I promise I would have flagged this if my political party was in control today, because I've raised it privately before, there are working arrangements within this council that have always made me uncomfortable. One of them I will highlight in particular was CASAM, the work of CASAM. In it was a hugely influential body that made great big decisions about what the council could and couldn't do with very little oversight on it. And I just fear as we're transforming how we do it this time that we might fall into a similar trap this time. So the plea would be, can we have a good root and branch review of where the decisions hide in this system? And if they are hiding, can we bring them out into the light a little bit more than we have in the past? Other than that, which I appreciate, has failed my New Year's resolution. It's to say thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes, there's quite a lot of stuff in there. Aidan, I believe you're going to answer that, I'm sure. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the comments. I'll start slightly unusually at CASAM as a good reference, and it's an interesting point. So for members that won't be aware, CASAM, the super named CASAM, is the Capital Strategy and Asset Management Group. So that is an officer group that looks at capital across the council. And there are real parallels with the rest of this programme, because in many ways, CASAM, that's been as an officer meeting probably for the last 2 years, looks at capital proposals of new schools versus highways improvements, bridges versus new computer systems. And what it tries to do is to have officers to try and get a coordinated view of relative prioritization of that, which is then, so it's not a decision making, it's a relative coordination prioritization, which is then passed to Cabinet, who make the approval or otherwise. I appreciate it sounds murky because we keep referencing it in our papers. CASAM says this, CASAM says that. But this is the kind of the leading edge of us trying to take a coordinated view of how do you prioritise these relative capital challenges. So I think, and certainly our portfolio holder, Councillor Clifford, is putting me under a lot of pressure to be much more transparent about the capital. And I think we can we'll see that coming through and we'll be clearer on the role of CASAM. The design authority in many ways starts to try and do the same degree of cross-council coordination. So this point about, in fact, casually we're calling it stovepipes. So the design authority is trying to bring a degree of standardization, ranging from kind of structures across the organisation, so the relative line management number of staff and the spans and tiers, as we call it, but through to systems as well. So one of the things that the consequences of our stovepipe approach is when we're buying IT systems, sometimes a department might have bought a system that does this over here, and another department buys a similar system that does that over there. So our control mechanism is this design authority to try and standardise and get ahead of decision making. But the commitment, once again, this is an officer group, but the commitment again is we've got our schemes of delegation about who can make what level of decision. If it's over $500,000, it comes to Cabinet and beyond. So I think we'll take on board the point about making it clearer, because we are falling into jargon traps that we're helped to fall into these traps by PwC. So we're falling, we do get a bit jargony, so we'll tighten that up for the final report. But what we're starting to see is this crucial bit I keep coming back to, trying to have prioritization, and to do that, everything needs to be channeled through a similar or the same point. Okay.
Thank you. Yes, if you want to come back, Simon.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you for that. I suspect it would probably give some of us some comfort. Not everything can have a full committee of membership on it or something, but I would be grateful if we could consider the possibility of member oversight on that particular group. I've always found it slightly odd. Just to use another example, for example, when I was doing the regeneration work of Weymouth, there was a whole series of working boards that underpinned that I had no opportunity to sit on. And actually, when the new when Jan came in, the new exec director, he changed that for me, and I was very grateful for that. Because actually, ultimately, members will be judged on the decisions that come out of any of these boards. And actually, I would be reassured solely if the portfolio holder sat on it, which, as it stands, I can't see that there's a role for you in there. So perhaps something to reflect on. I'm also really glad that you said about jargon. I was going to read it out in full, but I was going to be too grumpy, so I didn't. But as an example, can we look at 2.6 in the report? I was going to read that whole paragraph out in full. I've ran that past 7 people, and no one can tell me what that means. And it's not for today. I don't want to nitpick, but please, when this goes through, can we look again at it? Because I've been a councillor for 17 years, and I really hope I'd understand more what that meant.
Thank you. I'm just looking that up, actually. What was it, 2.4? 2.4. 2.6. Oh, I see. Consolidation and standardisation. Right. Oh, well, I think that we'll take your comment forward. I'm not sure that will be possible, and I don't sure that Lisa will want to talk about that at the moment, but I think we better move on. Thank you very much. I just wanted to say something that actually was brought up on the question, that I just want to comment that I understand that the corporate directors for Place have gone up to 5 instead of 3, and that was a comment that was made just in case the Unison come back. This has been rationalised in that the management level below has been amalgamated into this, so it's making economies of scale. So in fact, the management level has been subsumed up into the corporate level. So anything there has actually made economies of scale. So just to say there has been savings there instead of extra expense. Thank you.
Richard Biggs, Property Assets and Economic Growth. Really interesting debate. Very few people actually picked up on the key points that we, as an overview, I think you should be looking at. I mean, the conversation we just had, the scope. Clearly, if you don't understand one of the scope statements, you can't support it. So, that, I think I know what it means, but it doesn't jump out particularly well, does it? But the other thing, people sort of always, as councillors, always jump into the outcomes and what's going to happen and the cost savings and impacts to staff. And that's not what this is. Getting the governance right at the beginning is really key, and that's your role here. You've been given the layout as it is, and the member involvement, which is democratic and it's proportional to the political makeup of the council. So we've all got involvement there. Are you happy with that? And are you happy that the officer-led groups have the project management and the program management skills, which is, the risk management, detailed Gantt charts, opportunity, benefits analysis, all those sort of things, which have just been we're assuming that. So you need to be satisfied, I think, from an overview that it's there. Just say, these are the building blocks, okay. Is there the officer, are you getting external support? Because I've seen some limited quality on some sort of project management type things where sort of basic Excel, Gantt charts, things like that. That's not, each program is going to have a detailed number of projects sitting under it. And it's really key. The other thing is obviously it will go through scrutiny to be monitored and audit and governance. Well, audit and governance doesn't actually do risk. It does the assurance of the process on corporate risk management. These are going to have numerous risk management plans for various projects, which are going to be done at that level. They're not going to come to each one of those to audit and governance, and they don't look at the individual risks. They look at just making sure that it is being managed correctly and there's a process and a framework in place. You know, and project management is not the same as corporate management. It's a lot more detailed. So those are the sort of things that I'd hope the overview would be looking at. And then I don't think you've really touched on it. A lot of you focused understandably on the councillor type issues and the things that you're going to get and staff concerns and all the rest of it. But the building blocks of getting this right, and so often these projects fail and these programs fail because of poor governance. So I suppose my question back would be, have we got this skilled, you know, APM standard or whatever framework we're using in project managers, program managers to deliver, you know, programmers about delivering transformational change. You know, transformation, that is the key of a program. Project just delivers an outcome, a thing. Program is delivering change, which you're going to measure for your benefits. So that's what I'd hope, that this overview would ensure that those building blocks and those skills are there. So I wonder if we could have an answer at least to that point. Thank you.
Thank you. Aidan, would we call on you on that one? Have we got the skills to ensure that this is taken forward?
Thank you. So, have we got all the skills today? Probably not, I think, is my view. What we have got across the organisation, as we've heard, is some amazing people working on a whole variety of different projects in different directorates, doing different things. One of the early pieces of work that we need to do is to get that sense of, what we have been doing is getting that sense of where are these program managers working, what are they working on, and how can we make sure that it's kind of lined up and in that very clear Gantt chart that Councillor Biggs describes. So we're in the middle of a piece of work, and I've got a conversation at senior leadership team on Monday about understanding finally where all these program managers are, what skills have we got. So my answer about the no bit is some of the bits of work that we'll need to do, technology implementation, for example, we haven't got the skills straight away, so we can either learn those skills or buy somebody in to do it very quickly for us, so in then out again. So one of the crucial piece of the programme work is to have an oversight of the programme, know where we're strong and know where we've got gaps. And that's what the team are doing at the moment. I think we were talking about the LGR programme earlier. I cast my mind back to 5 years ago where a team from councils across Dorset came together to implement LGR on a pace that no other council's been able to do at a very successful level. We did buy some skills in at various points, but the core of the team are Dorset Council employees, and many of them are still in our employment, Nina. So we've got some really, really good people, but we're also aware of where we've got gaps, and that's what we're looking at. So that's the assurance I take. What we haven't got in front of us, and what we haven't got available at the moment, is this kind of day by day plan of what needs to be done yet. So there is some kind of learning and development to be done as time goes on over the next few years with this programme.
I thank you very much for being honest about that, because obviously we don't want to smooth over it and say, yes, we've got all the skills and we can do this. It's very much more self-effacing if you can say we do need to get a little bit more skill in place, or the people that will actually do the job, especially in AI, I understand, and all the digital stuff that we are now looking forward to actually embracing in some ways. I realise that everybody is getting a bit restless and it's 2 hours in. We've got one other person here at the moment listed, except for, I think, Belinda, and then we had David again. But Piers, I think, is the only one. No, he's cut to the chase. Can we have Belinda then?
Thank you, Chairman. Belinda Borden, Lyme Regis and Charmouth. Could I just... so I was reassured by the commitment to cross-party involvement, but what Councillor Biggs has just said, if it is to be on, I can't say it, political proportionality, then that does actually exclude probably at least 2 main parties. So, for example, on the Housing Members Board, anyone who's been interested has been invited. Would it be possible to request that this is allowed in this Members Board? And also that there's some reference to geographical representation, because there are a lot of areas that do tend to feel left out of the decision-making. I'd also like to pick up on Councillor Northam raised the possibility of being ready for other opportunities. The bus services bill had its second reading in Parliament yesterday, and I did a webinar this morning on opportunities in rural transport franchising. That's the kind of example where, as far as we can tell, the government has not given Dorset very much money, and yet it is being given a responsibility to be able to franchise our own bus services. That's an example where we need to be ready for these opportunities, and I'd like to know if any work has been done on that so far. Because that's the kind of thing that is going to reduce rural isolation. If we have better bus services, it's all kind of basic stuff. And also agree with Councillor Jesperson on the digital exclusion thing. I don't know where the numbers came from, but I can assure you there are an awful lot of people in Lyme Regis that they may be digitally educated, but they may not be able to afford broadband, for example. So it is quite nuanced and quite difficult. So I hope that that's all taken into account. Thank you.
Thank you, Belinda. Not sure that anyone can take that. I think some of the detail might be a little bit too detailed on that with the buses and things, but certainly, yes, please, Aidan, if you can answer that one.
Thank you. So I think there's 3 elements to the question. There's the bit about the cross-party working. So if we can invite Councillor Wilson to comment on that. I think bus services, the general point about being ready for other stuff, a classic example is the devolution, isn't it? So buses, I think Matthew will be able to comment in a second. I just want to nuance the point around use of technology and digitally disabled, or digitally enabled disabled. I mean, so some of what we're talking about is use an app, use on computers online, what have you. But also part of the way that the generative AI technology is developing is that at our end, our responses can be much quicker, much more automated. So part of the digital investment is making our systems faster, not just developing an app that only people with phones can use, And I think Lisa and Nina have both made that point. That we're conscious, we're aware, we're not going to digitally exclude, but we are determined to make as fast and as seamless the transactions for those that are digitally enabled. So on that point, if I could hand over to Councillor Wilson, if that's okay. Thank you.
I'm afraid at this point I don't have a firm answer on how we will constitute the steering committee. That's still something that needs to be designed, but my intention would not be to exclude any party. I do want to make it as cross-chamber as possible, because we all have a vested interest in its success. It's as simple as that. So I will come back to you on that point, but my intention is not to exclude anyone.
I'll be very brief, Chair. Matthew Piles, good afternoon. The answer is yes. We are actively involved with DFT on BSIP 1, BSIP 2, and now BSIP Plus, and I look forward to the combined authority discussions to get more investment for Dorset.
Yeah, thank you. That's good. That's absolutely excellent. Yeah, the one thing I'd like to mention, which is a difficult one in Dorset, in rural places, especially like Lulworth and Corfe Castle and places near me in Purbeck, is that there is no digital signal. And, you know, the actual need for the whole of Dorset to be covered by, you know, Wi-Fi and to be accessible. It's no good being, you know, savvy about, you know, Wi-Fi and all of that if you haven't got a signal, and even your mobile phone hasn't got a signal. And I would actually think that this is something that really, as Dorset, we should be really getting on top of. BT and their subsidiary company to actually get their act together, because I think the contracts we've had with Openreach has been dragging on and haven't been completed yet. So if we can have an answer on that one, I'd be very pleased. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. We do have a very active engagement with BT and other internet service providers in and around Dorset, but you're quite correct to say that the programme, and I'm dashed if I can currently remember the name of the national programme the government set up to roll out rural broadband at this very moment, but that programme has not progressed at the pace the government originally anticipated it would, and a lot of our engagement with internet providers is about chivying them to make internet provision that, had that programme succeeded, would already be there by now and would have been perhaps for several years. So we are acutely aware as a council of the need to continue addressing that deficit and make sure that everybody in Dorset has equally good access to equally fast broadband provision.
Thank you, Jan Britton. I think that answers that one. I think we've got one more online person. I think it's Kate Weller that wants to ask a question. Thank you, Kate.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman. I'm not on this committee, so I don't know whether it's possible for me to ask this question.
You're muted.
Not. Can you hear me now?
We can't hear you. You are muted.
Not.
Councillor Weller, you're not muted, but if you could try and get slightly closer to the microphone.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, that's better.
Right, thank you. Thank you. I knew I wasn't muted. Thank you. What I said, Madam Chairman, is I'm not on this committee, so am I okay to ask this question?
Yes.
Thank you very much. I'll try to speak up. I'm not quite sure why. Perhaps my microphone isn't picking me up very clearly. I'm confused. You mentioned, Madam Chairman, or you confirmed, Madam Chairman, that there were some of the directors had been promoted up into higher places, but the saving was still achieved because there were fewer people below them. And then Councillor Biggs was saying, and Aidan also mentioned, that we don't have the staff to do all of the implementation at the moment. So it looks to me as though we've actually added more chiefs, but we still don't have sufficient Indians. So who's going to be doing the implementing of all this stuff that these higher grade personnel are, the plans that they're writing? We don't have the people below them to implement, and that does really confuse me. Thank you.
Thank you. I think I don't know who's going to answer that. Is it Jan Britton again? Thank you.
Thank you, and apologies, I should have introduced myself the first time I spoke. Jan Britton, Executive Director for Place. To repeat perhaps what you already said from the chair a little while ago, the recent restructure in the Place Directorate did create, in effect, 2 new corporate director posts. It also deleted a number of head of service posts. So we've delayered the directorate and in effect moved to a structure where
I have a team of corporate directors and far fewer heads of service reporting to those corporate directors. The result is that the senior management arrangements in the Place Directorate will cost less this year and in future years than they would have done under the previous structure.
Is that okay for you, Kate?
Thank you.
I think, I don't know if David Northern wanted to speak again. No?
It's a very quick point. Councillor Porky of Portland, when we say working cross-party, I do remind Council there is a Labour group and we're mad keen to work cross-party.
I don't think we're liable to forget you, Paul, whatever, however big your group might be. Thank you for that. Answer that particularly. Right, so I think it's now just sort of a roundup of what all the sort of notes and things that I hope that George and his colleague has taken, and we've got the recommendations here, and I think if I just read them through, because it's been a long time sitting here, and I'll be very quick. The recommendation to consider and endorse is review the scope of our future council and for 25-29 transformation plan, providing feedback and recommendation to support its endorsement at Cabinet, thereby facilitating the future framework for delivery of transformation. Yes, yeah, and 2, evaluate the proposed governance framework illustrated in the transformation plan to ensure it provides consistent whole council oversight of the transformation and its implementation. 3, comment on the proposal of future scrutiny of future council transformation delivery at Place and Resources Scrutiny Committee and for overall assurance of risk and governance to be conducted by the Audit and Governance Committee. And I would like to see in there something about making sure that we've got staff mentioned in there, that maybe, or we can add another one that's saying staff is very important to us, say number 4, can we just add on that the staff are very, very important to us, and that is one of the factors that we're doing this transformation, and we've got to take them with us. So I'm not sure if we can add that as a number 4, just a quick one, but a lot of people brought that up, and I believe, and I've mentioned it to the officers, Nina and Lisa, about how important taking the staff with us in all this transformation, and Roland and everyone else mentioned it too. So thank you very much to everybody. Just one last.
No, I was just going to ask, Madam Chairman, how we're feeding through this extensive debate. Are we assuming that the writers of this report are going to go through the minutes with care and incorporate all the points that have been made? Because a number of points have been made several times, but a number of points like about cross-party working, about including planning as a specific item, but we haven't actually, we put those things up, but there's no recommendation. So are we making a recommendation, or are we going to just assume that you'll plough through the minutes?
First of all, I'm looking for a proposer and seconder to actually take this forward as an endorsement. But all of the comments that have been made today and any of the salient points will be put in the minutes, and they will be taken to Cabinet. So that will be where it goes next. Am I right? Am I correct on that one? Can you just actually confirm that, please?
Yes, that's correct. All comments and feedback received today will go forward to Cabinet, and we've had some fabulous feedback today, and we would absolutely like to give assurance that we'll take on board that feedback, including making things as plain English as possible and make sure that things are really, really clear in the Cabinet report that goes at the end of January. So thank you for everybody's contributions today. Really valuable to us.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you very much, Lisa. And yes, I do thank you for your endurance today, for sticking it out for 2.5 hours. And I think there's been some really good points brought forward. And actually, it is, in my opinion, the whole of our council, whether you're a member of staff or you're an elected member, all of your comments are really important to us, and it's very important that we have included everybody in it. So if you've got anything else to add, please put your hand up now, or forever hold your peace. So thank you very much. And, sorry? Yes, that's right, Lee. So I'm waiting for someone to actually propose. Thank you very much. And seconder, David Taylor. Thank you very much. And all in favour? How many is that? George, and those not in favour? Or not going to endorse it? I don't think we have to say. But anyway, we've got a majority, haven't we? Abstentions? Right, 1, 2, 3. Right. Okay, thank you very much. Just say it was 8 in favour and 3 abstentions. Thank you very much. And that's the close of the meeting. Have a safe journey home. Take care.